The Alpha King chose another Luna, then he learned she was the lost wolf queen. What happens when the choice made by a powerful king leads to an unexpected discovery? Could the person left behind hold a secret that changes everything? Welcome to our story, where emotions, destiny, and hidden truths come together in an unforgettable journey. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss another story filled with mystery and heart. Thank you for being here and supporting our storytelling journey. We truly appreciate every moment you spend with us. Share your thoughts in the comments below. What would you do if someone you overlooked turned out to be far more important than you ever imagined? Now, let us begin this extraordinary tale. The night an Alpha King chose another Luna was the night the forgotten queen walked away without a single word of anger. Beneath the silver glow of the full moon, the grand halls of Ashen Crown Palace shimmered with celebration as the kingdom gathered for one of its most important traditions. The Alpha King, Adrian Blackwood, stood before the gathered packs, carrying the responsibility of choosing the woman who would stand beside him and guide the future of the realm. Among the crowd was Amelia Whitmore, a quiet Omega from the small village of Willow Creek. She stood beneath the towering palace lights, watching a moment she never believed would include her. Amelia had never expected a crown, a title, or a place among royalty. She had only come because fate seemed to pull her toward the palace that night. When Adrian announced another woman as his chosen Luna, the crowd celebrated. Amelia remained silent, lowering her gaze as she accepted a truth she never wanted to face. She was not angry. She did not blame the Alpha King. She simply understood that some doors were never meant to open. With a gentle breath, Amelia turned away from the celebration and walked through the palace gardens, leaving behind the music, the cheers, and the future she thought might have existed. No one noticed the old silver pendant resting beneath her dress, carrying a symbol she had never understood. No one knew the secret hidden within her past. For years, Amelia had lived as an ordinary Omega, helping her village, caring for others, and believing her simple life was the only destiny she would ever know. But beneath the quiet surface of her existence was a forgotten story waiting to be revealed. As she walked back toward Willow Creek under the moonlit sky, Amelia felt a strange connection to the stars above her, as if the night itself remembered something she had forgotten. Meanwhile, inside the palace walls, Adrian Blackwood accepted the congratulations of his people, unaware that the woman who had just left carried a mystery connected to the oldest legends of his kingdom. The Alpha King believed he had chosen the right path. He believed duty and tradition had guided him toward the future his people needed. But destiny had a different story waiting to unfold. Far away from the royal halls, Amelia returned to the quiet village that had always been her home. She did not know that her life was about to change. She did not know that the pendant she carried held the key to a lost bloodline. She did not know that the world had forgotten a queen who had been hidden among ordinary people for years. All Amelia knew was that she had walked away from a dream she never truly owned. But sometimes, the moment someone walks away from what they thought they wanted is the exact moment they begin discovering who they were always meant to be. The quietest departures often leave behind the questions that echo the longest. Morning arrived gently over Willow Creek, covering the small village in a soft layer of winter mist. The sounds of everyday life returned as they always did, with the warmth of fireplaces, the opening of small shops, and neighbors greeting each other along the familiar paths. To everyone in the village, Amelia Whitmore had returned from the palace carrying the same kindness she had always shown. No one saw the sadness she had hidden behind her calm expression. No one knew how much courage it took to walk away from a place where she once wondered if she belonged. Amelia never spoke badly about the Alpha King. She never blamed him for choosing another Luna. Instead, she focused on the life she had always known, helping the people around her and finding comfort in the simple moments that had shaped her. Yet something inside her had changed. The old silver pendant she carried seemed different after that night. For years, it had been nothing more than a small reminder of a past she could not remember. It was the only thing left from her childhood, given to her before she was brought to Willow Creek. She had always wondered about its meaning, but she had never found an answer. Now, whenever the moonlight touched the pendant, a strange warmth seemed to awaken within it. One evening, while Amelia was organizing old belongings inside her cottage, she discovered a small symbol hidden beneath the surface of the pendant. The mark was delicate but familiar, resembling the ancient designs found in old stories about the royal wolf bloodlines. Amelia stared at it quietly, feeling a connection she could not explain. At that moment, Eleanor Whitmore, the woman who had raised her since childhood, entered the room. The older woman immediately noticed the pendant in Amelia's hand. For several seconds, Eleanor remained silent, as if she had been waiting for this moment for many years. "Where did you find that?" Amelia asked softly. Eleanor looked toward the window where the moonlight entered the room. "It has always belonged to you," she answered. Amelia felt her heart shift. "What do you mean?" Eleanor sat beside her and gently placed an old wooden box on the table. Inside were forgotten letters, faded photographs, and records that Amelia had never seen before. "There are things about your past that I was asked to protect until the right time came," Eleanor explained. Amelia looked at the items with uncertainty. She had spent her whole life believing she was simply an Omega with no connection to anything beyond her village. But now, pieces of a hidden story were beginning to appear. Far away in Ashen Crown Palace, Adrian Blackwood continued his duties as Alpha King. The celebration of his chosen Luna had ended, but something about that night remained in his thoughts. He remembered Amelia leaving the palace quietly, without anger or accusation. He remembered the way she accepted his decision with a grace he had not expected. For reasons he could not understand, that moment stayed with him. Meanwhile, Amelia opened the first letter from the wooden box and saw a name written inside that she had never heard before: the Lost Wolf Queen. She did not know why those words felt connected to her. She did not know that her entire life had been leading toward this discovery. But beneath the same moon that watched over the kingdom, a forgotten truth was beginning to return. Some secrets are not hidden because they are forgotten, they are hidden because the world is not ready to understand them yet. The old wooden box remained on Amelia Whitmore's table throughout the night, untouched except for the gentle movement of her hands as she turned each forgotten item inside. The letters, the faded records, and the strange symbols felt like pieces of a life that belonged to someone else. Yet every time she looked at the silver pendant, she felt a quiet connection growing stronger. It was not fear. It was recognition, as if a part of her heart already knew the truth before her mind could accept it. Eleanor Whitmore sat beside her, watching the young woman carefully. For many years, Eleanor had carried the responsibility of protecting Amelia's secret, waiting for the moment when the truth could finally be revealed. "There is something you need to know about where you came from," Eleanor said softly. Amelia looked at her with uncertainty. "Who was I before Willow Creek?" The question had followed her throughout her entire life. Eleanor opened one of the old records and placed it in front of her. The pages contained drawings of a silver wolf symbol, ancient family names, and stories passed down through generations. At the center of the record was a title that made Amelia pause. The Lost Wolf Queen. "Your family was once connected to the oldest royal bloodline in Ashen Crown," Eleanor explained. "A bloodline that disappeared from history many years ago." Amelia stared at the words, trying to understand what they meant. She had spent her life believing she was simply an Omega who found purpose in helping others. She had never imagined that her past was connected to the kingdom's greatest legends. "Why did no one tell me?" Amelia whispered. Eleanor looked toward the window where the moonlight covered the quiet village. "Because your identity was never supposed to define you before you understood your own heart. Your family wanted you to grow up knowing kindness before knowing power." Those words stayed with Amelia. She thought about the night at Ashen Crown Palace, when she stood among people who saw only an ordinary Omega. She thought about walking away without anger because she believed her value existed beyond someone else's choice. Now she wondered if that quiet strength had always been part of the legacy she carried. Meanwhile, inside Ashen Crown Palace, Adrian Blackwood reviewed ancient royal records brought to him by the palace historians. The discovery of the Lost Wolf Queen legends had created questions throughout the kingdom. For generations, stories spoke of a missing heir who would one day return when the kingdom needed balance. Adrian had never paid attention to those legends before. They belonged to old history, not the present. But now, certain details felt impossible to ignore. The records described a silver pendant carrying a forgotten royal symbol. They described a hidden heir who would live among ordinary people and remain unknown until the right moment arrived. Adrian remembered Amelia standing quietly in the palace courtyard. He remembered the way she left without demanding anything from him. The memory felt different now. It was no longer simply the image of a woman who walked away. It was the image of someone who carried a strength he had failed to recognize. Back in Willow Creek, Amelia held the pendant beneath the moonlight and noticed the symbol glowing softly for the first time. She did not know what the future would bring. She did not know how her life would change once the kingdom learned the truth. But she finally understood one thing: the person she had been searching for her entire life was not someone else. It was herself. The truth hidden for years does not arrive like a storm. Sometimes, it returns quietly, waiting for someone brave enough to listen. In the peaceful village of Willow Creek, Amelia Whitmore spent the following days trying to understand the discovery that had changed everything she believed about herself. The old records inside Eleanor's wooden box remained beside her every evening, their faded pages carrying stories that felt both distant and strangely familiar. Amelia had spent her entire life believing she was simply an Omega who found happiness through kindness and service. Now, she was learning that her past was connected to a forgotten royal legacy that many believed had vanished forever. Yet the thought of a crown did not excite her. The idea of power did not make her feel complete. What mattered most to Amelia was understanding why her family had hidden the truth and why she had been raised away from the world that once knew her name. Eleanor watched Amelia carefully as she searched through the old records. She saw the same gentle spirit that had always defined her, the same compassion that made people in Willow Creek trust her. "You have always carried the qualities they believed the lost Wolf Queen would have," Eleanor said. Amelia looked down at the pages. "But I am still the same person I was yesterday." Eleanor smiled softly. "Exactly. That is why the truth belongs to you." Those words stayed with Amelia. She realized that discovering her heritage did not erase the person she had become. It only revealed another part of her story. Far away in Ashen Crown, Adrian Blackwood continued searching through the royal archives. The more he learned about the lost Wolf Queen, the more questions appeared. The ancient records spoke of a hidden heir who would not seek attention, someone whose strength would be shown through compassion rather than authority. Adrian found himself thinking about Amelia more often than he expected. He remembered the quiet moment when she stood among the celebration and accepted a choice that had left her behind. Most people would have demanded answers. Most would have shown their disappointment. But Amelia had simply lowered her eyes and walked away with dignity. For the first time, Adrian wondered if he had mistaken silence for weakness. The thought unsettled him. He had spent his entire life learning how to recognize power, but Amelia had shown a different kind of strength, one that did not need a title or a throne. Meanwhile, rumors began spreading throughout Ashen Crown. The old legend of the lost Wolf Queen had returned to conversations across the kingdom. Some dismissed it as a forgotten tale, while others wondered if the missing heir had truly survived. No one knew that the answer was living quietly beyond the palace walls. In Willow Creek, Amelia stepped outside beneath the night sky, holding the silver pendant in her hand. The moonlight reflected against the symbol, revealing details she had never noticed before. She felt a strange sense of belonging, not because she had discovered a royal name, but because she finally understood that every moment of her life had shaped her for something greater. She was still Amelia Whitmore. She was still the woman who helped her neighbors, listened to their stories, and found joy in simple acts of kindness. But now she also carried a legacy that had waited patiently for her return. And somewhere beyond the village, the kingdom that had forgotten its queen was slowly moving toward the moment when the truth could no longer remain hidden. Sometimes, the greatest discoveries do not reveal what someone can become, they reveal what someone has always been. The days after Amelia Whitmore learned about her hidden heritage passed quietly in Willow Creek, but inside her heart, everything felt different. The village around her remained the same, with familiar streets, familiar faces, and the peaceful rhythm of everyday life. Yet Amelia no longer looked at herself through the same eyes. She carried the knowledge that her story reached far beyond the small home where she had grown up. Still, she refused to let a royal legacy change the way she treated others. Each morning, she continued helping her neighbors, preparing meals for families in need, and listening to the concerns of those who trusted her. To Amelia, kindness was never something that belonged only to queens. It was something every person could offer. Eleanor watched her with quiet pride, knowing that this was exactly why Amelia had been chosen by fate. Meanwhile, in Ashen Crown Palace, Adrian Blackwood faced a growing uncertainty he could not ignore. The more he studied the ancient records, the more the pieces began connecting. The Lost Wolf Queen was not simply a legend from the past. The forgotten heir had lived among ordinary people, hidden from the world until the right moment arrived. Adrian stood in the royal library surrounded by countless pages of history, but one memory continued returning to him. He remembered Amelia leaving the palace gardens after his announcement. He remembered how she did not ask for explanations or demand recognition. She simply accepted his decision and walked away. For the first time, Adrian questioned the meaning of true strength. He had always believed leadership was about making difficult choices and protecting tradition. But Amelia had shown him another kind of power, one built on grace and understanding. Back in Willow Creek, Eleanor finally revealed more about Amelia's family history. She explained that the Lost Wolf Queen bloodline had once been connected to the foundation of Ashen Crown itself. The royal family had disappeared during a time of uncertainty, and the last heir was hidden away to protect her future. Amelia listened carefully, but she still struggled with the idea that she belonged to something so important. "What if I am not the person everyone expects me to be?" she asked. Eleanor placed a gentle hand over Amelia's. "The world may expect a queen to wear a crown, but a true queen is known by the way she cares for others." Amelia looked at the silver pendant in her hand and felt a sense of peace she had never known before. She finally understood that her identity was not something created by a title. It was something revealed through every choice she had made throughout her life. As the rumors of the Lost Wolf Queen continued spreading through Ashen Crown, Adrian made a decision. He needed to know the truth for himself. He needed to find the person connected to the ancient legend and understand why fate had brought this mystery back to his kingdom. He did not know what he would discover when he followed the path toward Willow Creek. He did not know that the woman he once overlooked held the answer to a forgotten chapter of history. But beneath the same silver moon that watched over both the palace and the village, two paths that had separated were slowly moving toward the moment when they would meet again. The moment someone returns to the place they once left behind, they often discover that the person waiting there is not the same person who walked away. The journey from Ashen Crown Palace to Willow Creek was not long, but for Adrian Blackwood, every mile carried thoughts he could not ignore. The Alpha King had traveled across his territory countless times before, but this journey felt different. He was not arriving as a ruler seeking information. He was arriving as someone searching for the truth he had failed to see. As Adrian approached the quiet village surrounded by forests and open fields, he noticed the peaceful rhythm of life that existed beyond the palace walls. People greeted each other warmly, children played near the village paths, and neighbors worked together without concern for titles or status. It was a world very different from the one he knew. In Ashen Crown, every decision carried political weight. In Willow Creek, Amelia Whitmore had built a life based on something much simpler: kindness. Adrian found Amelia near the village garden, helping an elderly neighbor arrange supplies for the coming week. For a moment, he simply watched from a distance. The woman he remembered standing silently in the palace looked exactly the same, yet somehow completely different. She carried the same gentle expression, but there was a confidence in her that he had never noticed before. When Amelia finally saw him, surprise crossed her face. She had not expected the Alpha King to appear at her home. "Your Majesty," she said calmly, offering a respectful greeting. Adrian noticed that she did not look bitter or disappointed. She did not remind him of the night at the palace. She did not ask why he had chosen another Luna. Her peaceful acceptance made him feel the weight of his own choices even more. "Amelia," Adrian said quietly, "I came because there are questions about your past that need answers." She looked toward Eleanor, who stood nearby with a knowing expression. Amelia understood that the time she had spent avoiding the truth was over. She invited Adrian inside the small cottage where the wooden box containing her family records remained. As Adrian saw the silver pendant and the ancient symbols connected to the lost Wolf Queen, he finally understood the importance of the legend he had once considered only a forgotten story. The symbol matched the records in the royal archives. The connection was undeniable. Yet what surprised him most was not the discovery of Amelia's heritage. It was the way she carried it. She did not speak about becoming queen. She did not seek recognition from the kingdom. She only wanted to understand where she came from and why her family had been hidden for so long. Adrian realized that he had spent years searching for someone who could represent the kingdom, but he had overlooked the person who already carried the qualities of true leadership. Later that evening, as the moon rose above Willow Creek, Amelia stood outside the cottage holding the pendant beneath the silver light. Adrian joined her quietly, unsure of what words could express everything he had begun to understand. The distance between them was no longer about a palace decision or a forgotten choice. It was about two people discovering that their paths had always been connected in ways neither of them expected. And somewhere between the quiet village and the royal kingdom, the story of the lost Wolf Queen was no longer just a legend waiting to be remembered. It was becoming a truth that could change everything. The greatest truths are not revealed when someone gains power, they are revealed when someone chooses to remain kind even after discovering they have it. The morning after Adrian Blackwood arrived in Willow Creek, the quiet village felt different to him. He had entered many places as the Alpha King, greeted by formal ceremonies and respectful silence. But here, there were no grand halls, no royal banners, and no people trying to impress him. There was only a simple village where Amelia Whitmore had spent her entire life caring for others without expecting anything in return. As Adrian walked through the village paths, he noticed how naturally people trusted Amelia. They did not respect her because of a hidden title or an ancient bloodline. They respected her because she had always been there when they needed someone. An elderly neighbor smiled when Amelia passed by. Children ran toward her with excitement, eager to share their stories. Everyone knew her heart before they ever knew her name. Adrian quietly observed the difference between the woman the kingdom believed she was and the woman she truly had been all along. Inside the cottage, Amelia and Eleanor continued explaining the history behind the lost Wolf Queen bloodline. Adrian listened carefully as each detail connected with the records from Ashen Crown. The missing heir had not disappeared because she lacked importance. She had been hidden because her existence carried a responsibility that could change the future of the kingdom. Amelia looked at the ancient records and remained thoughtful. "I still do not know what this means for my life," she admitted. "I only know that I want to do what is right." Adrian heard those words and felt something shift inside him. He had expected a person with such a powerful legacy to desire recognition, but Amelia seemed more concerned about protecting others than receiving anything for herself. It reminded him of the qualities he had always hoped to find in a Luna, yet he had searched in the wrong places. Later that day, Adrian walked with Amelia through the fields surrounding Willow Creek. The afternoon sunlight covered the landscape with a warm golden glow. For the first time, they spoke without the distance created by a palace or a royal decision. Adrian wanted to apologize, but the words felt difficult to express. "I know the choice I made changed your life," he said quietly. Amelia looked toward the open fields before answering. "Everyone makes choices based on what they know at the time. The important thing is what we choose to do after we learn the truth." Her answer surprised him. There was no anger in her voice. Only understanding. Adrian realized that Amelia had already found peace with what happened, while he was still carrying the weight of his own mistake. As the sun began to set, the silver pendant around Amelia's neck reflected the evening light. Adrian noticed the ancient symbol once again and understood that the legend of the lost Wolf Queen was not returning because of a forgotten royal claim, It was returning because the kingdom needed someone who understood compassion before authority. Before leaving Willow Creek, Adrian looked back at Amelia standing beneath the trees. She was not trying to become someone important. She was simply being herself. And that was exactly what made her impossible to ignore. The Alpha King had arrived searching for answers about a legend. But he was beginning to understand that the greatest discovery was not the identity of the lost Wolf Queen. It was the person she had always been. Sometimes the world changes not when a person claims a place of power, but when people begin to recognize the quiet strength that was there all along. After Adrian Blackwood returned from Willow Creek, the halls of Ashen Crown Palace felt different. The Alpha King carried new thoughts with him, thoughts that challenged everything he had believed about leadership, tradition, and the meaning of a true Luna. For years, he had searched for someone who could stand beside him as a symbol of the kingdom. But now he realized he had overlooked the qualities that mattered most. Meanwhile, Amelia Whitmore continued her life in Willow Creek, unaware of how deeply her actions had affected the Alpha King. She did not seek attention from the palace. She did not expect recognition for her heritage. Her days remained filled with simple moments, helping neighbors, caring for the village, and learning more about the history hidden within her family records. To Amelia, discovering she was connected to the lost Wolf Queen did not make her better than anyone else. It only gave her a greater responsibility to understand where she came from. Back in Ashen Crown, Adrian gathered the royal historians and shared what he had discovered. The ancient records confirmed the connection between Amelia's silver pendant and the lost royal bloodline. The kingdom had spent generations wondering if the missing heir would ever return. Now, the answer was closer than anyone imagined. However, Adrian chose not to announce the truth immediately. He understood that Amelia deserved the chance to decide her own future. For the first time, he considered someone's feelings before considering the expectations of the crown. This was a lesson he had never learned inside the palace walls. Days later, Amelia received an invitation to visit Ashen Crown. The message was respectful and carried no demand from the Alpha King. It simply asked if she would be willing to return and discuss the history connected to her family. Amelia held the letter quietly, remembering the last time she had entered those palace gates. She remembered the celebration that continued after her heart had silently accepted that she was not the chosen Luna. Yet she also remembered that walking away had helped her discover a part of herself she never knew existed. Eleanor encouraged her to make the decision based on her own heart. "You are not returning because they finally see your value," Eleanor told her. "You are returning because you understand your own value now." Those words stayed with Amelia as she prepared for the journey ahead. When Amelia finally arrived at Ashen Crown, the atmosphere was different from the night she had left. The palace staff welcomed her with curiosity and respect. They did not see only an Omega from a small village anymore. They saw someone connected to a forgotten chapter of their history. Adrian stood at the palace entrance waiting for her. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The distance between them held memories of a choice that could not be changed. But the future was still unwritten. "Welcome back, Amelia," Adrian said softly. This time, his words carried no formality. They carried recognition. As Amelia stepped into the palace once again, she felt no need to prove who she was. She had already discovered that truth within herself. The kingdom was beginning to remember its lost queen, but Amelia knew the most important journey was not about being accepted by others. It was about accepting herself. A true leader is not revealed by the crown they wear, but by the choices they make when no one is watching. The return of Amelia Whitmore to Ashen Crown brought a quiet change that spread throughout the kingdom. She did not arrive demanding recognition or expecting everyone to accept her hidden heritage immediately. Instead, she walked through the palace halls with the same calm kindness that had defined her entire life in Willow Creek. Many people watched her with curiosity, wondering how an ordinary Omega could be connected to the legendary Lost Wolf Queen. But those who spent time with her quickly discovered that her strength did not come from an ancient title. It came from the way she listened, the way she cared, and the way she treated every person with respect. Adrian Blackwood observed these moments carefully. He saw Amelia speak with palace workers, thank those who helped her, and showed genuine appreciation for the people who had served the kingdom for years. These were small actions, but to Adrian, they revealed more than any royal ceremony ever could. He began to understand that leadership was not only about making decisions from a throne. It was about understanding the lives of the people affected by those decisions. Meanwhile, the royal council gathered to discuss the return of the lost Wolf Queen. Some members believed Amelia should immediately accept her place in the royal lineage. Others wondered whether someone who had lived outside the palace for so long could truly understand the responsibilities ahead. Amelia listened to every concern without anger. She knew their doubts came from uncertainty, not cruelty. I do not expect everyone to know who I am just because of a story written in old records, Amelia said. I only hope they will see who I choose to be today. Her words surprised many in the room. She was not trying to prove that she deserved a crown. She was showing that she understood what a crown represented. Later that evening, Adrian found Amelia in the palace garden, the same place where she had once walked away from a future she believed she would never have. The flowers had changed with the seasons, but the memories remained. You have every reason to be angry with this place, Adrian said quietly. Amelia looked across the garden. Anger would not change the past. But kindness can shape the future. Adrian lowered his gaze, understanding the meaning behind her words. Amelia had found peace long before he found understanding. She had moved forward while he was still learning from the choice he made. As the days passed, the kingdom slowly began to recognize Amelia not as a forgotten heir returning from history, but as a woman who represented the values they hoped to see in their leaders. The people saw patience instead of pride, compassion instead of distance, wisdom instead of the need for control. The lost Wolf Queen was no longer just a name from ancient records. She was becoming a symbol of hope for a new chapter in Ashen Crown. And Adrian realized that the greatest discovery was not that Amelia belonged to a royal bloodline. The greatest discovery was that she had carried the heart of a queen long before the world knew her name. The hardest lessons are not learned when everything falls apart, they are learned when someone finally understands what they failed to see before. As the days passed in Ashen Crown, Adrian Blackwood found himself looking at the kingdom and his own choices in a different way. The Alpha King who once believed he understood responsibility began to realize that leadership required more than making decisions based on tradition. It required humility, patience, and the willingness to admit when he was wrong. Amelia Whitmore had never asked him to feel regret. She had never demanded an apology or used her hidden identity as a reason to stand above others. That was what made Adrian's realization even stronger. She had possessed the qualities of a true queen long before anyone discovered her connection to the lost Wolf Queen bloodline. One evening, Adrian walked through the palace gardens where Amelia had spent time learning about her family's history. The moonlight covered the pathways, creating the same peaceful atmosphere that surrounded Willow Creek. He found Amelia reading one of the ancient records connected to her ancestors. You have changed this kingdom without even trying to, Adrian said. Amelia looked up with a gentle expression. I have only been honest about who I am. Adrian stood quietly for a moment before speaking again. That is what I failed to understand. Amelia closed the book and listened. I thought I needed someone who could represent the kingdom. Someone who carried the right image. But I never stopped to ask what kind of person truly belonged beside me. His words carried the weight of a lesson he had been learning since the night she left the palace. Amelia did not respond with anger. She simply allowed him to speak. She knew that understanding often came after mistakes, and healing required honesty from both sides. Adrian explained that choosing another Luna had been a decision made from the information he had at the time, but he now understood that he had looked at appearances instead of character. Amelia remembered the moment she walked away from the palace. At the time, she believed she had lost an opportunity. Now she understood that leaving had given her something more valuable. It had given her the chance to discover herself without depending on someone else's choice. Across the kingdom, people continued learning about the lost Wolf Queen. Stories spread not because of her royal blood, but but because of the way she treated everyone around her. The people saw that Amelia did not want power for personal gain. She wanted to protect the peace and kindness that had always guided her. Adrian watched as the kingdom slowly embraced her, and he realized that the woman he once overlooked was exactly the person he had needed all along. Not because of an ancient title. Not because of a forgotten legend. But because of the heart she carried. As the silver moon rose above Ashen Crown, Adrian understood a truth that would stay with him forever. A king could choose a Luna based on expectations, but only time could reveal the person who truly carried the spirit of a queen. And Amelia Whitmore had proven that she was never waiting to become worthy. She had been worthy from the beginning. A true bond is not created by a title or a promise made in front of a kingdom, it is created when two people finally understand each other beyond the roles they were given. In the heart of Ashen Crown, a quiet transformation was taking place. The kingdom that once searched for a perfect Luna based on tradition was beginning to understand a different kind of leadership. Amelia Whitmore had never tried to replace anyone or prove that she deserved a place beside the throne. She simply continued being the person she had always been, and that honesty slowly changed the way people viewed her. Adrian Blackwood noticed the difference every day. The Alpha King who once stood behind decisions shaped by expectation now found himself learning from the woman who had once walked away from his palace. Amelia showed him that a leader did not need to have every answer. A true leader needed the courage to listen, understand, and care. Together, they spent more time discussing the future of Ashen Crown. Their conversations were no longer between a king and an Omega from a small village. They were between two people who had experienced change and learned from their past. Amelia shared ideas about improving connections between the palace and the villages beyond the royal walls. She believed that every person in the kingdom deserved to feel seen and valued. Adrian listened carefully because he knew her perspective came from a life he had never experienced. She understood the people because she had lived among them. She knew their hopes, their worries, and the small struggles that were often invisible to those in positions of power. One evening, Adrian invited Amelia to walk through the palace gardens once again. The same path that had once represented separation now felt different. The flowers had begun to bloom with the changing season, and the quiet beauty of the garden reflected the new chapter beginning between them. "I spent so much time searching for someone who could stand beside me," Adrian said. "I never realized I needed someone who could remind me why the position mattered." Amelia looked at him thoughtfully. "A crown is only meaningful because of the people it serves." Adrian smiled because he knew those words represented everything Amelia had taught him. She had never wanted to rule over others. She wanted to protect the people who trusted her. As the Lost Wolf Queen's story became known throughout Ashen Crown, the kingdom began to celebrate her not as a forgotten royal figure, but as a symbol of compassion and hope. The ancient records had revealed her identity, but her actions had revealed her heart. Amelia understood that returning to the palace had not been about reclaiming something she lost. It had been about discovering a future she never imagined. Adrian understood something equally important. The woman he once failed to recognize had not become extraordinary because the kingdom finally saw her. The kingdom finally saw her because she had always been extraordinary. Under the silver moonlight above Ashen Crown, two paths that once separated began moving together toward a shared future. The Alpha King and the Lost Wolf Queen were no longer connected by duty alone. They were connected by respect, understanding, and the choice to build something greater than either of them could have created alone. The greatest changes in a kingdom do not always begin with grand announcements. Sometimes they begin with small moments when people finally feel heard and valued. As the seasons changed over Ashen Crown, the presence of Amelia Whitmore continued to bring a quiet sense of hope throughout the realm. She had returned as the Lost Wolf Queen, but she never allowed the title to create distance between herself and the people around her. Every day, she walked through the palace halls, visited the villages beyond the royal walls, and listened to stories from those who had spent years feeling unnoticed. The people did not admire Amelia because of ancient records or royal blood. They admired her because she treated everyone as if their voices mattered. Adrian Blackwood watched the kingdom transform alongside her. The Alpha King had once believed that protecting his realm meant carrying every responsibility alone. Now, he understood that a true leader created trust by allowing others to share their wisdom. Amelia showed him that strength was not found in control, but in connection. Together, they began building a future where the palace and the villages were no longer separated by tradition. The ancient customs of Ashen Crown remained important, but they were balanced with a new understanding of compassion and unity. One morning, Amelia returned to the royal archives with Adrian. The same records that had revealed her forgotten heritage now represented something more than history. They represented a reminder that the kingdom's future was shaped by everyone, not only those born into positions of influence. Amelia carefully placed the old documents back on the shelf and looked at Adrian. "For so long, people searched for the lost Wolf Queen," she said softly. "But perhaps what they truly needed was not a person from the past. Perhaps they needed someone willing to listen in the present." Adrian smiled because he knew she was right. The legend had brought Amelia back to Ashen Crown, but her actions had given the legend meaning again. Later that evening, the kingdom gathered beneath the silver moon for a celebration honoring the return of the forgotten royal bloodline. The atmosphere was different from the ceremony where Adrian had chosen another Luna. There was no pressure, no expectation, and no search for perfection. Instead, there was gratitude for a new beginning. Amelia stood among the people who had once known her only as a quiet Omega from Willow Creek. Now they saw the same woman, unchanged by her title, but finally recognized for everything she had always carried within her. Adrian stood beside her, not because tradition demanded it, but because he respected the person she had become. He understood that the greatest honor was not standing beside a queen because of her name. It was standing beside someone whose heart inspired an entire kingdom. As the celebration continued beneath the stars, Amelia looked across Ashen Crown and remembered the night she left the palace believing she had lost her chance at belonging. She now understood that she had never truly lost anything. The path away from the palace had led her toward herself, and that journey had revealed a truth greater than any crown. She had not become the lost Wolf Queen because the kingdom accepted her. The kingdom accepted her because she had always lived with the heart of one. The most unforgettable legacies are not created by the crowns people wear, but by the kindness they leave behind in the hearts of others. Years passed peacefully in Ashen Crown, and the story of Amelia Whitmore continued to inspire every corner of the kingdom. The woman who once believed she had no place among royalty became the queen who reminded everyone that true leadership came from compassion, understanding, and the courage to remain genuine. Amelia never forgot the quiet village of Willow Creek where her journey began. She often returned there, walking through the familiar paths and visiting the people who had known her before anyone discovered her hidden heritage. To them, she was still Amelia, the kind soul who had always cared for others. The crown had revealed her history, but it had never changed her heart. Adrian Blackwood also carried the lessons of their journey throughout his reign as Alpha King. He no longer measured strength by how much responsibility one person could carry alone. He learned that the greatest leaders were those who welcomed different voices and understood the lives of the people they served. Beside Amelia, he built a kingdom where tradition and compassion could exist together. One evening, as the silver moon illuminated Ashen Crown, Adrian and Amelia stood on the palace balcony overlooking the peaceful lands below. The lights from countless homes reflected across the kingdom, reminding them of everyone who had become part of their story. "Do you ever think about the night you left the palace?" Adrian asked quietly. Amelia looked toward the horizon with a gentle smile. "Sometimes. But I no longer see it as the night I lost something. I see it as the night I found myself." Adrian understood those words because he had learned the same lesson in his own way. The choices they made, the mistakes they carried, and the moments that challenged them had all guided them toward a better understanding of what truly mattered. Their story was never about a king choosing the perfect Luna or a queen discovering a forgotten title. It was about two people learning that a person's worth could never be decided by appearances, expectations, or the opinions of others. Across the kingdom, children grew up hearing the story of the lost Wolf Queen. They learned that Amelia had not become extraordinary because she discovered a royal bloodline. She became unforgettable because she had always chosen kindness when she could have chosen bitterness, humility when she could have chosen pride, and understanding when she could have chosen resentment. The ancient records that once held a forgotten name became a reminder of a greater truth. A legacy was not only inherited. It was created through every choice a person made. Beneath the same moon that watched Amelia walk away from the palace years before, the kingdom finally understood what had been hidden all along. The lost Wolf Queen was never lost because she lacked a place in the world. She was hidden because the world needed time to recognize her. And the Alpha King who once searched for the right person to stand beside him finally understood that the greatest treasures are often the ones people fail to see at first. Amelia Whitmore did not need a crown to prove she was a queen. She carried the heart of one long before anyone knew her name.